Well, while we wait on pins and needles to see who the next offensive coordinator is going to be for the Seattle Seahawks, there's some roster work to be done and getting a late start on it, right? One of the things about winning the Super Bowl is everything happens faster. And now free agency is already less than a month away, 3 weeks away. March 9th is the beginning of the official tampering period. And the Seahawks have some key free agents. If you thought John Schneider had a good offseason last year, of course he did. They won the Super Bowl and he won Executive of the Year. He's got some heavy lifting ahead of him this offseason as well, and it's already causing a whole lot of stress amongst the fan base. Well, today I'm going to try to make as much sense of it as I can for you. I'm going to show you the 5 most important, biggest key internal free agents the Seahawks have, and one other wild card I can't quite make sense of. Then I'm going to take those 5, find contract projections for you, get an idea what they're really going to cost, and then I'm going to tell you who I think stays and who I think goes. We have a lot to talk about coming up next on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Best way you can help support me as a full-time independent content creator, hit that subscribe button and a thumbs up. That's the easiest, least expensive way that you can help support me. But as we move into the off season, when clicks and views sometimes and even promotional opportunities are a little tougher to come by, here's another way that you can help, and it's a whole lot of fun too. It's the new merch store. I'm wearing, you see that gray hoodie right there in the middle. That's their lightweight version of their hoodie. They've got 5 different styles, and I can't stop wearing this thing. It is so comfortable, you guys. This stuff is all on sale right now to help celebrate their Super Bowl victory. You can get a t-shirt, high-quality t-shirt for $16 right now. Really good stuff. You can mix and match, as you can see there, different logos, different color schemes. You can put it on light or dark. You can even play around and do a throwback for yourself as well. So check that out if you would. All right. So, yeah, it sneaks up on you quick when you win the Super Bowl. It is crazy. First of all, the Mariners are already in spring training, so we don't have to wait that out any longer. But as far as off-season news goes, I mean, you know, I've been pretty open on here about how I'm way behind in my draft prep, and I'll be spending this week trying to get caught up on that so we can all dive into it and do all the draft stuff that we love, right? But there's some decisions to be made on free agents, and we've talked a lot about the sustainability of what the Seahawks have built here and this window that they're opening with this young roster, 3rd youngest roster in the league by season's end. A lot of those guys are locked up, so we can shoot for continuity. We can roll the whole thing back again, essentially. But you're always going to have to make some tough choices. Some players stay, and some players simply can't, either because they want another opportunity, another situation, or because they feel like another team can pay them more. So they'll allow themselves to get to free agency. And it's causing, as I said at the top, a lot of stress, right? We're already worrying as a fan base about who we can't keep. Can't keep them all. That's what we always hear. And you hear that a lot from the opposing fan bases too, a lot of wishful thinking like, well, the salary cap's going to kick them in the butt. They got to pay all these guys, right? Well, the Seahawks are in a unique position because not only do they have just under $70 million in effective cap space now, according to Over the Cap, after signing their practice squad guys to futures deals, 15 of those, but they also have another $52.7 million they can clear up in what is known as simple restructures. And that is when you take a veteran's contract and you simply convert some of his base salary to bonus. Seahawks have done this almost every single year. They write this into their contracts. They plan for this. They budget for this. This is a tool that they use if they need to clear more cap space. And we see it happen every year. Now, the downside of that is you do push some dead money into the future. But again, that's something that they plan for and they budget for. They don't just go to year. They've got boards up in their offices. Joey Lane, their cap guru, for sure, going 3, 4, 5 years out on how this stuff's going to work. And part of that projection is the salary cap goes up every year significantly, almost $20 million this year. And so, yes, they can't keep every single free agent or exclusive rights free agent or restricted free agent and still be able to add someone from the outside if they want. and still be able to afford all their draft picks and still have a contingency for trade deadline moves and things like that they've been so successful at over the last few years. They can't do it all, but guess what? They don't need to because they don't want to. There are going to be players that they're going to move on from because the production or the fit, just the cost. And so what I've done here is I've been working on this for the last couple of days, and I'm taking the two main sources that are available to us out there. And that's Pro Football Focus and Spotrac. They both try to project contracts for these guys as part of their free agent rankings. Now, this isn't an exact science. This isn't something they're going to get right all the time. But all you have to do is go back and, like, for example, take PFF and look at their article last year where they grade the free agent signings as they happen, and then they compare it back to what their projections were at the beginning of the process. They get more of them right than wrong. And the method that Spotrac and PFF uses to come to these comparisons, it's a whole lot more work with a lot more analytical data at their disposal than you and I have. And so criticize it if you want, but it's the best that we have to work with, right? Sometimes they're wildly wrong. Sometimes they're spot on. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you the big five. There's more, and there's a sixth that we'll get to at the end. The first one's Ken Walker, and this is the guy that's fresh on all of our minds, of course. He just won the Super Bowl MVP, finished the season really strong, and really looked like a different back at the end of the year. The influence potentially of Justin Outten taking over for Kennedy Polamalu as the primary running backs coach mid-season. We saw Walker being more decisive in his cuts, understanding where the lanes will open up in this wide zone-based scheme, but also the patience. Took even another step forward in how patient he ran with the football in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Even Chris Collinsworth said it on the broadcast, kind of shades of Le'Veon Bell. And I think it suits him well. And he proved he can be healthy. He catches the ball better than Chris Collinsworth gave him credit for. And I still think that's a big untapped part of his game. Now, let me get this out of the way. Him winning Super Bowl MVP, I personally don't think, and you can look back decades, doesn't add any money to his deal. A team's not going to go, well, we got to pay him another $1 million because he won Super Bowl MVP. Now, we've seen Super Bowl MVPs make a name for themselves and cash in on that. Larry Brown, the best example of that, the old Dallas corner. But that was more a case of just like, hey, maybe we didn't give this guy enough attention and maybe he's more of a player than we thought he was. And they overvalued that one performance, and then he never lived up to the free agent contract he signed after that. But this is one of those cases right off the top where both of these entities are precisely aligned in what they think his worth is, and I think they're both wrong. So PFF has him at 3 years, $27 million, with $20 million guaranteed, a $9 million average annual value. Of course, the $20 million guaranteed, so it's really only just under $7 million a year. And then Spotrac has him at 4 years, $36 million, $9 million AAV. So they're in alignment. I don't think this is on base. Now, you can argue, and I think when some people start to get a little carried away with, I've seen some things online like just pay him 15 to get him to stay because the franchise tag is 14, that you're completely blowing recent comps out of the water. Kyren Williams, $11.5 million a year. James Cook, $12 million a year. Those are the comps. When you look at age and upside and even production, those are the comps. So I don't know where they're coming up with $9 million unless they're vastly overvaluing or putting way too much weight on the injury history. Kyren Williams had a fumble history, right? James Cook is considered undersized. I think that's the territory, and I think it's going to take about 12, maybe 13 million to keep him from getting to free agency. And I think that's what the Seahawks will try to do. Of course, John Schneider joked at the parade while they had already started to dip into the Bud Light, at least he had, that Walker just tried to negotiate with me 5 minutes ago. That was weird. I'll give you my prediction on what I think happens here at the end, but I think they're going to try really hard with all these guys to get him to agree to a deal before they hit free agency. They've had a good history doing that. They've also had a very good history of letting guys get to the market and test it and then signing them that day. That's how good John Schneider is at determining these guys' markets because of all his contacts and guys that he trusts throughout the league and his communication, his ability to get this kind of information. And that process really starts in earnest in about a week and a half at the NFL Scouting Combine. Next up, let's go Riq Woolen. And these are two vastly different projections and one that, I put Spotrac up here, but I'm rejecting that out of hand. There's no way that Riq Woolen's going to have to settle for a 1-year contract. So let's just throw that out. But I put it up there for terms of just showing what they think his AAV is, which is also, I think, vastly wrong. PFF has him at 3 years, $45 million, 20 guaranteed. That's obviously a nice, clean $15 million average annual value. I have argued for a while that if you let him get to the market, that he might end up getting JC Horn money, right? That he may end up between $20 and $25 million a year in AAV. Why? Because teams look at the upside. They look at the length. It's rare. They look at the production, right? And you can take week 1 and shine a spotlight on it this week and the 2 missed plays at the end of the game. Sure. You can take the penalty in the NFC Championship game. You can shine a spotlight on that. But especially from the trade deadline on, when some of those technique process things that Mike McDonald talked so much about in the first half of the season that they were working on with Riq really clicked in, and he became a different player and was one of the highest rated corners in the league in the second half as far as just being really tough to throw on. Teams are going to look at the lockdown ability, the height and length, the speed, the upside, and the traits, and they'll pay for that. And, one factor that might help mitigate this a little bit is it's a strong corner class this year. I don't know if there's superstars in this class, but there's 10 deep over the first 3 rounds that look like rookie starters to me, which bodes well for the Seahawks should Riq get away. But again, I think this is one where I'm purely guessing here. I have often thought, and it was reported last offseason by ESPN, that there are those around the league who believe the Seahawks don't think Riq is an ideal fit for Mike McDonald and the style of football he wants to play. And then we heard Mike McDonald rave about him throughout the year, but we've also heard him talk in those terms about other players who were then cut. I saw a lot of that during training camp. Oh, this guy's great, that guy's great, and then they cut him at the 53. So I think they'll approach him. I think they'll try to sign him, but they'll do it in the Seahawk way. And this is the way they approach all their free agents. And I think it garners them a lot of respect around the league among players and agents is here's what we think your value is. They don't try to undercut guys. They're like, this is how much we think you're worth. Here's the offer. We're not dicking around. This isn't a car dealership. We're not going to go back and forth to the sales manager. We're not lowballing you, hoping that we can reach a middle ground. This is what we think you're worth. Take it or leave it. If you want to go take it to the market, fine. If you don't find what you like, or you find something equal, but you'd rather be here, then come back here and this deal will still be waiting for you. That's how they approach things. And that's what I think they'll do here. But if he gets to the market on March 9th without a deal with Seattle, he gone, because then I don't think the price matches the certainty of what they're getting for him and how he fits. Coby Bryant, the safety. This is another one that I'm a little confused on. I've gone back and forth because here's what we know. We know that he has made himself into a really good starting safety in this league after being drafted as a corner. And we also know that the Seahawks tried to sign him to an extension at the beginning of the season. That came out when they locked up Abe Lucas to his new deal. He rejected it. We heard Greg Bell say about mid-season, maybe 2/3 of the way in, that he thought Mafe, after Charles Cross signed his deal, he thought Bryant would be next. But then Quentin Lake signed his deal with the Rams, 3 years, $42 million. And I thought, okay, I mean, depending on structure, obviously, I thought that's too rich. You're not going to pay Coby Bryant more than you're paying Julian Love. You're just not. But at these numbers, PFF has him at 3 years, $30 million. Spotrac has him at 2 years, 28.5. So Spotrac has a higher AAV of 14.2, PFF at 10. I'm not paying him $14 million a year. Again, I just don't think it works. He's a good player. I don't think he's a $14 million a year safety. And we also know what we have in Ty Okada. And we saw how well he played at both spots, filling in for Julian Love and Coby Bryant at times this year. That's an easy pivot. Easy pivot. You can get him for a third of that. He's, I believe he's restricted. And so, they'll need to put a tender on him if they can't get him signed, but it's for a lot less than Coby Bryant. I also like Maxon Hook on the practice squad, a guy that I really liked at Senior Bowl last year. There's options. There's some guys in free agency that have some history with McDonald, and it's a solid safety class. There's some interesting dudes there too. So if you can get Coby Bryant for 3 years, $10 million, 20 guaranteed, the way the Seahawks structure their contracts, that's doable. I kind of think he might be in that camp of I could go one way or the other, but I'll give you my final predictions here in a moment. Boye Mafe is another one, the second round draft pick in 2023. PFF has him at 3 years, $49 million for an average annual value of 16. Spotrac comes in under that, 3 years, $36.7 for a 12.2 average annual value. And I get the confusion because we just don't know what to make of Mafe. He was a very valuable member of that rotation, and he got a lot of pressures, but he didn't get home. He didn't get sacks. He had the run 2 years ago where he had the 7 straight games of the sack, but he just never really broke out and became that kind of productive guy. He's athletic. He's a hard worker. He's all of those things. He's improved, I think, as a run defender, but he just hasn't cashed in on those traits. He just hasn't become a guy that you have to worry about just beating your tackle off the edge individually. But these guys are getting paid. These rotational edges are getting paid. Last offseason, what did we see? George Karlaftis with the Chiefs and Gregory Rousseau with the Bills both signed. I think they were both essentially 4-year, $80 million deals to be a second pass rusher on their team. I'm not doing that for Mafe. I'm just not. I'm bringing DeMarcus Lawrence back. Uchenna Nwosu's got 1 year left at a big cap hit on his deal. I firmly believe that Seahawks are going to extend that, give him a couple more years. He showed he can be healthy, and I think he's every bit the player that he was before the injuries, and he was able to stay healthy this year. He's great in the locker room. They love everything about him. He's still 28. I think he turns 29 next season. It's the right part of his career. I think they extend that deal and lower his cap hit. Mafe is a tough one for me at that number. Really, really tough at that number. And then we get to the one that everybody's freaking out about. And the predictions and projections are all over the place. And that is our boy, Rashid Shaheed, acquired at the trade deadline from the Saints for a 4th and 5th round pick. Very, very similar projections in this case. Both 3-year deals. PFF has them at 42 even. PFF clearly likes the even numbers. Spotrac likes to throw in a couple of odd ones there. They've got them at 42, 380. So basically $14 million a year. Many of you have balked at that number. You think it's way too expensive for a guy who's essentially your second or third wide receiver. And then there are those of you who think he's going to get Alex Pierce money in the market. He's going to get 20 million plus. That's just not the case. He's had some injuries. He hasn't had a lot of production. The return thing is huge, and we're going to try to factor that in. But I think these numbers are spot on. I think basically the contract that they gave Cooper Kupp last year, 3 years, $45 million, right? Structured in the way the Seahawks like to structure it, so you can get out after 2 years if you want to, but maybe working in a little bump for his return ability. And so I did this. Went and looked for some comps. And here's a few that I came up with where I'm looking at similar age, similar profile, speed guys, deep threats. I've got 2 strong ones here, I think. Darnell Mooney signed for 3 years and $39 million, an average of $13 million a year. Did that at the age of 25. His profile, speed wide receiver 2 with 1,000-yard season. Gabe Davis is another one. 3 years, $39 million when he went from the Bills to the Jags. Same $13 million average annual value. Signed it at the age of 25. Boomer bust, deep threat, big play specialist. Darius Slayton, I've got thrown in there, but I'm going to throw that one out because it's way too low. Similar profile. He had injury issues and production issues. And so here's what I came up with. When I combined all of these, And let me just mention this too, because I think some people want to try and use Jakobi Meyers' deal as maybe the comp that's getting them to the higher numbers. He signed that 3-year, $60 million deal with the Jaguars a month after they acquired him at the trade deadline. But when you break it down, this looks very Seahawkish. This really does look like a 2-year deal for $30 million guaranteed, with the third year having a big cap hit, but a big savings with little dead money if they want to get out of it. So really it's 2 years, $30 million. So he would fit right in here as well if you think that Meyers is the comp. But Meyers is older. He's more established. He's been much more productive over his career. He's also a different profile, more of a possession receiver. And this is what I came up with for a full comp. I think it's somewhere in this area. 3 years, $45.9 million, an average annual value of just over $15 million with about $31 million guaranteed. Would you do that? Would you do that? But here's where I'm getting a lot of. Well, his agent's going to leverage this free agency because Kubiak went to the Raiders and he loves Kubiak. He wants to be there. Rashid Shaheed only played for Kubiak for one season. He was injured for most of it. And then he followed him here. He doesn't have a long history with Kubiak. And players want to be comfortable. They want to find their home. They want to get paid. They want to get rewarded and be appreciated. They want a role that allows them to be productive. You have an opportunity as a 26-year-old player to play on a team where you're going to be the primary returner. And then after a full offseason now of working yourself into the offense and building chemistry with Sam Darnold, of being a huge piece of this offense for a team that's looking like a team poised to make several runs at the Super Bowl over the next many years. You're just going to walk away from that because you like the play caller that just moved to the worst team in the league and go through another rebuild after playing on bad teams your entire career in New Orleans? Are you you're gonna test the market just for that? I think those are a little bit overblown and unfounded. And also there's this. There's one person who thinks Shaheed's going to stay here and wants to stay here and is committed to doing so, and that's Rashid Shaheed himself. Take a listen.
At the end of the year, is that anything on your mind now as you come here, or you just kind of worry about that later?
No, I'm here to stay. I'm here to stay, man. So I'm excited. We can figure something out after the offseason, or after the season ends. But yeah,
so you're looking at this as your new home?
Long term, yeah. Yes, sir.
Does that sound like a guy who wants to make an extra $1 million or $2 million by testing the market? No. That sounds like a guy who was little known coming out of Weber State, undrafted free agent, had to work his way up, found a role, broke his leg, then got traded for, came to a team that loves him, has a big role for him, won the Super Bowl. He said that the first day they acquired him. Now, if your reply to that is, yeah, but that was then, and now Kubiak's left. Well, he said basically the exact same thing on Monday during Super Bowl media week. And that was after it was widely known that Clint Kubiak was going to be the Raiders' next head coach. He wants to be here. The team wants him here. I think they'll get a deal done before March 9th. And then all of that angst can go away. All right. Speaking of going away, I'm going to tell you who I think stays, who I think goes, and the one wild card that might play into all of this as well. But first, I want to tell you about a new feature on the Sleeper app. I've been singing their praises all year long, but now, instead of just player props and player performances, you can pick games and you can pick events. It's called Team Picks, and you find it within the app. You see there up at the top there, teams and players. You can toggle between one or the other, and you just select teams, and you can choose any sport, right? Once on Mariners opening day, you could choose the Mariners to win if you'd like to. If you're an NBA fan, you could choose the Portland Trailblazers to beat whoever they're playing on a given night. If you're a golf fan, during golf majors, you can choose who you think's going to win that match. And look what you can do when it comes to football. We know the NFL is 365, 24/7, right? You could already choose who you think is going to be the top pick in the NFL draft in April. And as you see there on the bottom, you can even choose already who's going to win the Super Bowl next year. And you can see the Seahawks are the favorite right now at 12%. The Rams right behind them at 9%. Buffalo at 7%. Interesting, the Patriots aren't listed there among those top 3. But Sleeper has introduced team picks. So again, just toggle over to it at the top in the Sleeper app. That's where you can find team picks. They are available alongside their fantasy leagues and player pick contests. Enjoy. And then we've got the President's Sale going on at Omaha Steaks. I've been really proud to have these guys as a sponsor throughout the season because Omaha Steaks has been a part of the Viennes family for almost 60 years, at least to my knowledge, because I remember having these delivered to our door when I was a kid. They've been doing this for over 100 years. They are a family-owned and operated business, and they specialize in USDA certified steaks. It's not all they do. Delicious burgers. Told you how I made some smash burgers with their meat during the Super Bowl. They've got side dishes and desserts as well. And right now on the President's Day sale, you're going to get 50% off site-wide. You can select a variety pack of your own favorite cuts of meat. They're going to deliver them individually packed and cold cased to your door. So you get the 50% off site-wide. But guess what? For being a viewer of this program, using the promo code FOREVER, they're also going to give you an additional $35 off at checkout. So go to omahasteaks.com, OMAHA steaks.com, just like Peyton Manning used to call it out, for their President's Day sale, 50% off site-wide, an additional $35 off at checkout if you use the promo code FOREVER. All right, so who do I think ultimately is going to stay and who do I think is going to go? Here's what I've got. And this has evolved throughout the season. I think at the beginning of the season, I thought that Ken Walker was gone, that running backs were a little bit not disposable, but easier to find, that there were some real questions about his game, his decisiveness, his fit in this scheme, his durability. They had Zach Charbonnet, George Helani, and Jacardier Wright, and potentially getting Kenny McIntosh back next year off an ACL. But he's convinced me, and I think he's convinced all of you, he is a priority. I think he's priority number 1 right now. I suspect the Seahawks are working with his agent right now to try to get a deal done as soon as possible. Again, free agency starts in just 3 weeks on March 9th. I think they get a deal done with Ken Walker. This is the thing. There's 2 things that work in the Seahawks' favor here. We know exactly what the running back market is. This isn't like the other positions where somebody comes along and resets the market. No one's going to give Ken Walker $20 million a year. So they know exactly what he's going to cost. They also have the franchise tag available to them. And this is something that John Schneider has only used twice in his entire career. He doesn't use this often, but he could in this case. Because, again, unlike other positions, the franchise tag isn't completely out of whack with where they would need him to be to fit into their salary cap. If they're going to pay him $12 million a year, the franchise tag's 14. It's not like that with receiver. They're not going to franchise tag Rashid Shaheed because you know what the franchise tag is for receivers right now? It's almost $29 million. It's an average of the top 5 at the position. So you're not going to be able to use it on Shaheed, but you can use it on Walker. And so I firmly believe he's such a priority and he's such a good fit now with what we saw him and his development throughout the year that if they can't get a deal done with him by March 9th, the deadline for franchise is March 7th. So if they can't get a deal done by that date, I think they'll use the franchise tag on him. And honestly, it may come to that. That's where the agent may encourage him to do that because you know what happens next then? Now the starting point for your annual salary becomes $14 million. And the agent's probably already trying to take that tactic now. But I think that's the ceiling. That's the highest. I know I said earlier that you don't have to go to 15 or you might have to go to 14 or at least present it as 14, right? So quick math, what would that be? Let's go with a 3-year deal at 14 a year is 42, but maybe only guarantee 30. So it's 10 a year. You structure it like the Seahawks do so you can get out after 2. If there's any issues, I firmly believe Walker will be back. Shaheed as well. He's a priority. You just heard him say, he's been saying all along, he's stayed consistent with it. This is where he wants to be. I think they get that done before free agency starts. And I think it's close to the projection that we saw. Bryant, I'm kind of 50-50 on because of the presence of Ty Okada, because of the deal that Quentin Lake signed. He might price him out of what they would like to have him as, and the fact that he's already turned them down tells me that this might be a little bigger battle. When it comes to Riq, I think he's going to turn down whatever they offer him before free agency because he wants to test it, because he knows he'll get paid more, and I think someone's going to pay him more than the Seahawks are comfortable with. And then Boye and Mafe, same thing. If teams are paying $15, $16 million a year for these secondary rotational pass rushers, and they're going to dream on his upside and his traits, maybe think that in a different scheme, more of a Pete Carroll-based scheme where he's back playing like the Leo, maybe he would get more sacks. Okay, yeah, we're not going to pay that. It's also a very good edge class, and it just doesn't make sense. Now, for the wild card, I promised you one of those. If you let Riq Woolen go, you've got Devin Witherspoon on one side, PFF's highest graded corner in the league this year. Pretty cool, right? Because there were those who thought he couldn't play on the outside. And then you have Nehemiah Pritchett, who we saw in flashes this year. We saw him play really well. We saw that unbelievable rep to break up a touchdown pass to Marvin Harrison Jr. in the home Cardinals game, and the coaching staff really likes him. But that's about it, right? And then they had Shaq Griffin and Shamar Jean-Charles in the practice squad. They let both those guys go. They didn't sign them to futures deals. So corner's a need, even if they were to bring Riq back. And Josh Jobe, he's the wild card. PFF doesn't even list him among their free agent rankings, and they go hundreds deep. They go into the 300s and he's not listed. They've got Shaq Griffin at 199. I don't know who missed on that one. I went over it 3 or 4 times. I thought I missed it. I thought I was crazy. He's not even listed. Maybe they got his contract wrong and they thought he was restricted. I don't know. But Spotrac has him at 3 years, almost $30 million, about $10 million a year. That seems rich for me for a rotational corner. We've seen him play really well in that role, but when having to play full-time, when Riq was hurt, teams can pick on him just a little bit. Love Josh Jobe, though, and here's the thing. This is one of those players that you hear Mike McDonald just rave about and go on and on and on about. I got to experience that at training camp. He'll say things like, this guy embodies everything that we want in a Seahawk. He goes about his business in exactly the way we want all these players to do it. And I think they find a way to get him locked into a multi-year deal, something he's never had before. Remember, we got him from the Eagles practice squad. So he's a guy that hasn't made money. So maybe you can get him on a 2-year deal. Maybe you have to go 3, but I think you can get something done with him before free agency starts that will make sense as a rotational corner. And then that just gives you a little bit of flexibility heading into prime free agency and the draft. The other reason there's a wild card at play here is because there's a lot of buzz lately around Marlon Humphrey. The former, obviously played for Mike McDonald in Baltimore when he had that elite defense. He was an all-pro in 24, didn't play as well in 25, but there were some issues with that defense across the board. There were a lot of injuries, and then the coordinator just didn't do a great job. And so he's still not quite 30 yet. I think he's still 29. Marlon Humphrey, leader, guy in the clubhouse everyone loves. And he was spotted at the Seahawks victory parade. Thought that was pretty fascinating. There are some indications that the Ravens have some salary cap issues to the point that they're not going to be able to re-sign Tyler Linderbaum. He's going to have to go to free agency, and he's probably going to get a record-setting deal as a center. Sounds like there's a chance that they release Marlon Humphrey, make him a cap casualty. He'll be on the open market. Wouldn't it be kind of cool to add a veteran? That would be sort of this year's version of DeMarcus Lawrence, right? Add that grizzled veteran to rotate with Josh Jobe. Probably give you a team-friendly deal, maybe even a 1-year deal. Try to chase a ring at this time of year. Seattle's going to be that destination now. Oh, I want to go play for a coach everybody loves in a positive culture and win a ring. Okay, I'll take 1 year, $8 million, something along those lines. So I'm kind of torn on Josh Jobe. We'll see how that goes, and we'll see what happens potentially with maybe even some other options that are on the market. And as I said, it's a good corner draft. And when you start to look at how position groups and the value in these position groups and where these guys are ranked on consensus big boards and where it lines up with where the Seahawks are drafting at the end of rounds, edge and corner are two groups that look really good at 32. And so that could be a direction that they go, certainly depending on what they do with these guys. Just because football season's over doesn't mean Fast Fashion Brewing isn't a great place to go. Proud to have them as a sponsor as well. Baseball season's going to be here before you know it. And if you're going down to Mariner games, man, it is the best place to drink the best craft beer in Seattle. They're on First Avenue, right next door to Hooverville, across the street from Showbox Soto. They're working on some new beers. I just was texting with Matt Storm today. If he's there, say hi to him for me and tell him that you watched the show. But they're working on some alignment and some special beer varieties that are baseball themed. So keep your eye out for those. As I said earlier, check out the merch store. That link is down below in the description. All the other ways you can help support me are as well. And there's also the Patreon. And as we get into the off season, we're going to have a lot more fun with this. There's going to be more exclusive material all there. I'm still behind on my Senior Bowl stuff. I'll be uploading practice footage and some things there as we get more into scouting. Also, you can access my Substack through there. I'll be starting to write on the draft as we move forward as well. But you can get everything that I do, video, audio, YouTube, Substack, and you can get involved in our Discord so we can keep the conversation going all season long. Go to Patreon, look for Northwest Forever, because I also do Mariners content there. Or you can click the link down below, or you can go to the website URL, and that's nwforever.com. It stands for Northwest Forever. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever 2. That's where I list everything that I'm doing. Be back again tomorrow with more on Seahawks Forever. I'm Dan. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Forever and always, go Hawks.